deflecting. And it brings us on to our first major talking point of the day. I think he was deflecting away from Phil Foden's stinker of a performance yesterday. And that's what it was. Phil Foden, the best way for him to have responded yesterday by Phil Foden would have been for him to, when he had that, by the way, he had the Garnacho had the best chance to score at the back post 15 minutes into the game. But let us not pretend for a single second that there wasn't a massive chance for Phil Foden early in the second half. And he absolutely fluffed these lines. And I think that's what Pep's doing massively here. He's, the chants were terrible. The chants were horrible. Now you're deflecting from Phil Foden flopping again. And I have a question around Phil Foden flopping. By the way, morning Sam, morning Potsy. I've got a big question about him. We know KDB is now leaving. Is it time for City to drop the idea and notion that Phil Foden is the heir to his crown? Because remember, I'm a Foden fan, but he was meant to be the heir to David Silva's crown. Didn't do it. KDB is now leaving, and he's had the worst season ever. Do they have to look for better than Phil Foden? I'm throwing that out to the panel.
Yes, and they are going to look for better than Phil Foden. Every system in the world, big up Sean, every system in the world, every manager in the world has a machine and then has a cog in the machine. Phil Foden is nothing but a cog in the Pep Guardiola machine and can be replaced like that. There are players at Manchester City who are irreplaceable. Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, as we saw, even Erling Haaland, very difficult to replace. I do not put Phil Foden in that category at all. I've been very consistent for these last 2 years, 3 years. I think Saka's better than Foden. I think Palmer's performed better than Foden. My problem with Phil Foden is the following. You have had so many opportunities to step up. Whether it was when Kevin De Bruyne is out, whether it was when David Silva left the club, he has had countless opportunities. When Jack Grealish was underperforming, he was played on the wing. When Doku was underperforming, he was played on the other wing. He was given so many chances as a winger, as a number 10, as a midfielder, and I don't see him step up. And I think last season, in my opinion, he shouldn't have won the Premier League Player of the Season. I think it should have been Rodri. I've been very consistent about that. I think Rodri was the best player in the world. I think he deserved to win Ballon d'Or, completely deserved to win Ballon d'Or. And I think he should have been the Player of the Season as well, because he was City's absolutely the best player at Manchester City. But I look at like Phil Foden, and he hasn't stepped up. He really has not stepped up at all, to be honest with you. And David Silva's already playing in like Manchester City Legends games. He was gone like 4 years ago. He can never replace David Silva. He can never replace it. Yeah, but you know Dan Potts, Man City Legends. Like they're all, like 36, 37, When you see a Liverpool Legends game, they're all like 50, 60, they got white hair and stuff. You see a City Legends game and they're all like, 36, 37.
Where's Sean Goater, man? Where's Sean Goater and Sean Wright-Phillips and all these, man? Do you know what I mean? It's all David Silva and co.
Sean Goater is a legend, then we must end the sport.
Paulo One Shop. Now, look, I agree with Hassam. Look, I don't want to start saying that Phil Foden is a bad player, because he's not. He's clearly a brilliant player. He's not particularly lit it up for his country, and there's a lot of stick that he gets for that, rightly so. Some of that is him being played out of position, but really we've seen him play left and right for Manchester City as well. I'll say this. I think 20 goals and assists in a season is a fairly good season, fairly okay season. Phil Foden's done that once for Manchester City. So he hasn't really been known to be the guy who scores their goals, the guy who creates their chances. And I think Phil Foden has had the pleasure of having everything around him perfect. He's had a perfect manager. He's had perfect players around him. The Kevin De Bruynes of this world, the David Silvas we've mentioned. Behind him, he's had one of the best, the Ballon d'Or winner. He's had Haaland to feed to, who scores every single goal we pretty much give it to on a plate. So when people compared him to Saka a couple of years ago, they've rightly stopped that now. I think it's because they realised Saka actually does do a lot more individually. But what they're going to say now is that actually it was a stupid comparison anyway, because they don't play in the same position. So by all means, compare Foden, Palmer and Bellingham if you want, but Saka's on the right-hand side doing his thing. The other three are in the middle trying to work out who can play as the 10 for England, right? We can compare those three all you want. If I look at Foden's stats, and I'm not really a stats guy, I'm not really a goals and assists guy, but some people are. since he's been there, he's got 5 goals and then 2 assists, 9 goals and 5 assists, 9 goals and 5 assists, 11 goals, 5 assists, 19 goals, 8 assists last season, which was where he won Player of the Year. This season, 7 goals, 2 assists. So you don't look at any of those stats, think, wow, they're shambles. But for what he is supposed to be and what he's supposed to represent and how he's supposed to lead Manchester City, I would say those stats are pretty average, if I'm honest with you. I don't think those stats are like, wow, this guy is absolute elite level, one of the best players we're ever going to see. And I've taken some examples last season of when he did bring Manchester City across the line, take the game by the scruff of the neck, but I don't think I've seen it consistently. But one thing is, for real, before I let Mo come in, this is the worst player to come off the back of Player of the Year. This is actually a shambles of a season in comparison to the one he had last season, where he gets a Player of the Season. And people have tried to compare him in the realms of some of the others. I've seen consistent performances from Bukayo Saka for the best part of 5 years now. So I'm not sitting here as an Arsenal fan going, please put some respect on Saka's name. I'm done with that. A lot of people disrespect him. I kind of echo and keep saying it. Everybody wants to shit on Saka as best they can. But for some reason, Foden seems to be getting away with it. Is there credit in the bank? I don't think there is individually. I think there is for the team he plays for, because they've done a 4-peat. But really, do you think Foden will be doing what Saka's doing at Arsenal if the roles were reversed? Do you think Foden would have carried Cole Palmer or for Chelsea last season?
No.
I question that. I question it.
I think
If Saka was having the season that Foden is having now, there would be newspaper articles talking about Saka's form.
Their defense is always, but he won 6 league titles and he won the treble. It's the same argument that everyone has for any Pep Guardiola player. Jack Grealish, for example, I think one of the worst 100 millions with Lukaku in the history of the sport. Like, the guy have scored like what? We did the stats yesterday on Sam's show. 17 goals in 4 seasons for 100 million pounds as an attacker. Can you? That's not a midfielder, bro. Casemiro had the same amount of goals, or like 1 goal less from the midfield, and we're talking about. But he won the triple. He won the treble. He won a 4-peat. Foden is a good player, as Dan said, but Foden is never going to be a superstar. What I mean by a superstar is someone that everyone looks to actually drag a team. And I disagree with you completely, Dan, about him dragging Man City last season. And I stated my opinion on the show on others, and more on the show with Terry. Last season, Man City struggled. You remember the 1-6, Foden was there. The only player that was not there, that we all know, the captain of Manchester City, it is Kevin De Bruyne. Manchester City last season, when Kevin De Bruyne came back, went on that run that beat Arsenal run at the end of the season. And statistically, Kevin De Bruyne has contributed in more games since he came back from injury last season than Phil Foden. That proves that the one that dragged him over the line is Kevin De Bruyne in the second half of the season, like he did it before when he come, because Kevin De Bruyne is a man at Man City team that actually we know that he's the odd guy. He's not a system player. It's someone that comes with something out of the ordinary. Phil Foden is turning into, he'll get a dribble every now and then. He'll have a good pass or a good shot, like Eze, but with all due respect to Eze, like Eze, he'll have a brilliant game every now and then. But for him to, if you're a Man City fan, and I guarantee you, Dan, Sam and Terry, there is no Man City fan out there that when City is struggling, they're looking at Foden and saying, bail us out, please. Please bail us out. You know what they do? They look at Kevin De Bruyne, Kevin De Bruyne, please save us today. No one says, Foden, save me. No one does this.
Do you know what's really interesting? Do you know what's really interesting about it? I think it opens up a lot of old debates and everything else. It just goes to show that you can be in a brilliant team surrounded by brilliant players, but that doesn't mean you necessarily always get carried, as an example, because he hasn't been carried this year. And I think that his fall off this season has been exposed because of other players' fall off. But this idea that the trophy is a way he doesn't get criticized, it just got me thinking. I was thinking back to who in our lifetimes, everyone watching the show. By the way, I want to big up Ty Cunningham. He's gifted out 20 memberships to our viewers today. You absolute legend. And welcome to the United Stand community that have joined us here today. Can everybody please, though, hit the like button and share? So thank you and welcome to one and all. I thought back to a certain other Mancunian who played in the red half of the city called Ryan Giggs. And I think this is a case in point. in the early 2000s, about between sort of 01 and 03, not for that whole period, he went through some bad time trying gigs. He had some problems with his hamstrings. The Old Trafford crowd booed him for some poor performances. And I remember Richie Keys, Andy Gray, these were the leading pundits at the time, ripping him. I remember the Manchester press ripping him. I remember the kids at school ripping him. My family ripping him. But that was after a man that had already won. I'm hazarding a guess here. What that would have been by then about. He won 13 Premier Leagues. I think he had about 6 or 7 Premier Leagues. He'd done a treble. He was the first player to be part of a side to do the double, then go on to do a treble. But he was still being criticised. So I get that some people think Phil Foden is being protected because of the trophies. I think Phil Foden is being protected because Man City are just not that big and not that interesting to people. I don't think there is much mileage in the mainstream media for them to do a forensic analysis. And we saw it yesterday. Man United, we weren't great yesterday, but everybody knows the context of our situation the club is in. City are the side chasing a Champions League position. City are the side that dropped £200 million on players in the January to get themselves back into the race for titles and everything else. And they played the last 20 minutes for a draw. Yet there is almost no criticism. What's happened today is Gary Neville has gone down the lines of, robotic football is making the game boring. It's impassionate. I hate seeing it. The players hugging at the end is crazy. Rather than what should have been the main focus yesterday. Man United are 13th, 14th in the league. They've transitioned mid-season. We know they're poor. No one expected much more from us yesterday. We've got no one that scores goals in the teams. We're a team at the beginning of a rebuild, and we are in a mess, and we all know that. But the side that are champions, the side that have the greatest manager of a generation, the manager who's responsible for influencing football into this robotic nature, along with these £1 billion squad, 200 million spent in the summer, and it was turned into a generic conversation that football's just got bad, as opposed to City have really fallen off this year. And for me, City fans can take this as a dig if they want. I think it's because they know people ain't clicking on the videos. People ain't reading the articles if it's solely criticism of Man City. I don't think enough people care. So what they have to do is they have to drag everybody else into the conversation so they can use Chelsea and United and Arsenal and Liverpool's name alongside them. And I just find it interesting that the same pundits who have lauded Pep for his influence on the game being so amazing are now saying his influence on the game, he said they're bad carbon copies, but therefore it's his influence has led to the game being robotic. When I think a big part of it is City have just had terrible recruitment. Certain players have fallen off, and Pep Guardiola, like yesterday, and I want to shout out all the Man City fans, Patrick, Kel, all of them, who actually called out the fact that Pep got it wrong yesterday. He had no width or pace in his team by the players he chose. He put the old men in midfield against a legless Man United team. And I have seen almost zero call-outs from the mainstream media. And I don't care what he's won, because I remember Fergie, I remember Wenger, I've seen Jose Mourinho, I've seen Antonio Conte, all blasted. So forget, I'm not going to mention Mikel Arteta. I'm not going to mention managers on the way up who haven't won all the major trophies. I have seen legends called out by these pundits when they get it wrong. But why City and Pep Guardiola completely ignored and left alone? My only conclusion can be there isn't the money in it. There isn't the clicks. There isn't the engagement, because there's no other reason. I don't want to hear credit in the bank, because Jose and Conte and Wenger and Fergie and others before them, go back and watch footage from the early 90s when Cloughie's team were falling off. Cloughie was ridiculed. Cloughie's a legend, but he was ridiculed. I have seen legends of every other club called out. So I don't hear this bullshit. I thought about it this morning.
No.
Not because of the trophies. It's because there's no money in calling out Man City. So what do they have to do? Drag the rest of us into it and start moaning about chants. That's all they have. That's all they have.
Can I just say something about the mainstream media? Yesterday, Micah Richards was saying that we're going to see a better version of Phil Foden when Kevin De Bruyne leaves. And he referred to Phil Foden as a youngster. Phil Foden played with Yaya Toure. Phil Foden played with Yaya Toure. He is 25 years old. 25 years old. The youngster thing is done now. This whole youngster, he's coming through and he needs time. And by the way, let me just tell all the City fans something. He can't replace Kevin De Bruyne. He can't lace Kevin De Bruyne's boots. He's never ever going to be the next Kevin De Bruyne. Ever. Like, that's never going to happen. Ever in his career. He will never be that type of guy. Kevin De Bruyne has left the Premier League, and a lot of us, even rival fans, including myself, has been nothing but like we've been nothing but like giving Kevin De Bruyne his flowers and his respect. Even me, as someone who hates Manchester City, I've done nothing but praise Kevin De Bruyne over this last week when he's announced he's gonna retire. I've said he's a phenomenal player, one of the best Premier League players of all time, one of the best Premier League midfielders of all time. Foden can't become that. He's just, it's just complete PR. Yep, it's just complete PR. And the thing is, as well, with this conversation, we have to keep in mind